All right. Good morning to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning also to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And welcome once again to this live stream. Hope you are enjoying your weekend. And we're here for day 2 of our discussion of Farpoint Con. If you were here with us yesterday, we were talking about a lot of like the platform and some of the cool things that we noticed with what they were doing with the setup of this con. And just as I had yesterday, I do have, the rest of my team joining me. So let me introduce them yet again. First up, I have Connoisseur, Chris Pabon. So let me bring him on.
Good morning and happy Sunday, everyone.
Hello.
Feliz domingo para todos nuestros espectadores. Shonen Sonntag.
Awesome stuff. Welcome. And of course, last but not least, he is also an awesome member of our team. He provides many of the reviews that we do here on the website, specifically with our horror films in particular. So without further ado, let me introduce Josh Pritchett. Bring him on. What's going on, Josh? Good morning.
Live long and prosper, everyone. or if you like to say my language,
very nice. So again, good morning to those of you who are watching. Good morning, guys. So here we are, we're back. I have to ask, after doing the initial show yesterday, did you guys have spend some time like perusing the con afterwards? And if so, what did you take part in?
Joss, please.
I'll leave it to either of you.
Well, I attended the Discovering Discovery panel that was hosted by Mary Fan and Keith DeCandino. That was very interesting. They talked a lot about several things that have so far gone on in the first 3 seasons of the series. No real news was released. They covered a variety of subjects, including Giorgio's character. For those of you who've never watched it, that's Michelle Yeoh's character, who plays both the late Captain Philippa Giorgio and Empress Philippa Giorgio of the Terran Empire timeline. And, got into what they hope to see coming up in the next season, and compared it, to other Roddenberry projects like Andromeda and others. But it was a really fascinating panel. I think they did a great job with it.
Okay, Chris?
Well, Brandon and everyone out there, I kicked in the cells and took the ship out for a ride. And I did a lot of things yesterday. I explored everywhere I could, and I went to 3 different panels. And before I get into specific panels I saw 2 different formats. I saw the format where you had moderators and where you did not have a moderator. And I think for this specific format, the non-moderator worked more for me than having a moderator. I thought having the moderator was a little bit distracting at times, whereas without a moderator, the direct interaction via the Q&A with presenters was really well done. Some audio problems here and there, especially in the John and Benita Billingsley talk, which is fabulous, by the way. But during the first 15 minutes, there was a lot of echoes, but they resolved it finally. Again, first time they're doing this, you're going to have some problems. The panels I went to were one hosted by author Howard Weinstein, which was on movie and TV reboots, and we came to the conclusion that a key element for a reboot of a movie or TV series is the perception of fondness that people have. And part of it is also generational, that, and we worked on Battlestar Galactica a lot, that even though it was only 1 season, but as time goes by, people grew the fondness of remembering of it, and people who are 10 or, this is for the adults, and people who are 10 or 11 would think, oh, wow, that series, yeah, I remember my mom and dad watching it. Maybe I should watch it too. So fondness plays that factor. And like Joss, I went to the Discover panel. And then, as I mentioned, I ended up with the John Billingsley talk, which was fabulous. And I must say that he has an amazing quantity of books behind him on his shelves. He has books behind books. It was, as a avid reader myself, it was very pleasing to see. And he talked about the work that he and his wife do with the Hollywood Food Coalition. And it's always really very inspiring to hear that of the activities that they do, not only on screen, but more importantly, socially off screen.
All right, awesome. Unfortunately, I was able to spend a little bit of time, not as much as I would like. I'm probably going to do more so of it now once I'm freed up, as there was another commitment with a different show for many of you that that are aware out there. But I did notice this. I was coming on this morning, and I could be mistaken about this. You guys can correct me. Those of you that are watching can correct me about this. But it seemed like, because I didn't remember it having this feature before, but when I signed in, it gave me, remember we were having this discussion yesterday and talking about like the avatar and like the having more choices. And I don't know if it just changed yesterday, but I was able to edit my avatar this morning.
Oh,
So like, I was able to make the change. I know we were having a discussion about that of, I wish that it didn't change every single time. Like I had to refresh when we were having those, initial issues of getting out of the panels and kind of that process. But unless I'm mistaken, and again, for those of you that are watching out there, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like I had the option to do that as of this morning that I don't recall having yesterday. So that was interesting. I was like, oh, okay. All right, cool. So maybe it was something that they were hearing, maybe not just from me, but maybe from others, where they were, because based on like the program or the algorithm that they were able to do, that they were able to adjust it that quickly on the fly. Or as I said, I could be wrong. Maybe it was there the whole time, and we're just still trying to navigate the system. But yeah, that part of it I found interesting. So with that being said, guys, were there any particular panels today that you guys, were particularly keen on, that you guys wanted to check out, or that you're curious about? And then secondly, too, for those of you, since you guys are seasoned when it comes to this con, what does what does day two normally look like for each of you? Seeing that it's only over the course of a weekend, and with it being contained within a hotel, it may look a lot different than it may look if you are perusing an entire convention facility.
Well, from my personal experiences, Sundays usually look like a lot of people kind of hungover. A lot of partying going on Saturday night. A lot of people drinking coffee, and a lot of the people who do the panels and do the discussions and things are trying to get the energy going for one more. But I think there's also a lot of people who kind of feel like, oh, I'm so sad that this is the last day, but I'm glad to have seen all my friends and had such a good time. It's, Farpoint's like a nice mini vacation for a lot of people to just get away from their personal reality for a weekend and, have some fun and just see old friends and stuff. So that's kind of what I'm used to seeing on an average Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon at Farpoint.
Gotcha. Chris? I know you have a routine, so yeah, go ahead.
I do have a routine. I wanted to say I'm really glad to hear about being able to change your avatar, because it must have been something this morning, because I did spend a bit of time trying to change my avatar yesterday, and I just couldn't. And every time I refreshed, it changed. So I was just like, it was not a big thing, but it's like, I really wish I could customize this. So hey, they're just listening to the feedback of people who are attending. So I think this is awesome. Sunday routine. Well, just like Josh said, I do notice some of my friends who are a little slower on the take on Sunday morning, let us say. I like to hit the vendor rooms because I want to see, like, okay, what deal I might be able to make to take some stuff home that I noticed on Saturday. That is one thing I would say about the con yesterday. I tried to check out the vendor room or the vendor tables, but it wasn't self-explanatory to me. I was having some trouble, interacting with a couple of tables that I identified. So that'll be one thing when they have a panel today at 3:30, which is about like what we could do better. I'm going to suggest maybe somehow trying to improve the access with the vendors. But I usually like to, hit the vendor room, and then I like to go to a couple of talks, and then generally I do like to leave a little bit early, because you do have that moment of sadness, like, oh my gosh, I have to go back, and you just kind of feel it, the ambience goes down a little bit, so I like to get ahead of that and just like leave a little bit early, still feeling good.
Yeah, you don't really feel like leaving. You really want to, I've joked with friends that, well, for me, heaven would look like an eternal Star Trek convention, but I think, I think that would depend on some other people. Some people might think that's hell, but, just get and hang out and do stuff at conventions is what I look forward to doing. So,
toss in the Star Trek convention here and a Star Wars convention next door, and that sounds perfect to me.
Well, yeah, or just general sci-fi. I think, I think, with some of the bigger national cons like Creation Con, they pretty much focus on one or the other at a time. Whereas Farpoint, Shore Leave, and Awesome Con, they run the gambit in one show of Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who, Babylon 5, Battlestar Galactica, whatever's popular, or whatever's nostalgic at the time, really. So, I've been to cons that have had guests that had absolutely nothing to do with science fiction. I met Henry Winkler one time at a con in Massachusetts, and as far as I know, he's never been on Star Trek. He might have guest starred on one of the newer incarnations of the Outer Limits, but really, I'm somebody who just basically knows him from Happy Days and more recently, the show he does on HBO.
Barry. Oh my God, I love Barry.
Oh God, that's such a good show. Yeah, people really need to check that out. Because it's such a good show. If you're looking for something post Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul type of thing, Barry's your show.
Gotcha, for sure. And it's funny that you brought up, each of you were talking about, how people are a little groggier the next morning. So I'm curious, because I was said that I was going to check it out, but I had forgotten, and didn't do it yesterday. And you guys could let me know in the comments, for those of you that are watching, did any of you all that attended this con, and as I said, it's not just for you guys, but also for the viewers, did you guys actually go to anything afterwards? Because I didn't really check the programming to see if they decided to still have a party per se. So, because I know that downstairs they normally have parties at night at the con, and they're like, annual ones that they do on a regular basis. So it would have been interesting to see if you still had to go downstairs to the main panel room, and if they did like a Zoom virtual party, but you still had to physically enter that room in order to enter the Zoom virtual party. Like, that would have been fascinating to me, and how that would have looked. Because technically you could still do it. You could still have a DJ. It's not unheard of that, I have some DJ friends that, believe it or not, they still have been working even in this socially distanced era that we're in, or, period that we're in. And they have joined Zoom parties and have still played their music, and people have still been able to enjoy, the talents that they provide with their, with the music that they play, even under the, the vehicle of doing it virtually versus doing it live. So I feel it would have been pretty interesting if they did indeed do it. As I said, I'm not sure if they did, because I didn't, stick around to find out. But yeah, for those of you, if they did actually do it, I would love to know. You guys can drop a comment and let me know, or let us know one way or another. So with that being said, guys, with the former point of that question, was there something specific that you guys were keen to check out today? And if so, we can, head over that way now.
I might look at some panels later on today. There's, I don't think, I think there's various things going on. I was just looking at the schedule. I don't think anything's really starting until noon, though. Is it, Chris?
Yeah.
Well, the fairy tales panel, these are not the fairy tales to remember, starts at 11. I'd actually circled for today the Doctor Who panel at noon, and then the Lower Decks panel at 2 o'clock. And I do want to do at 3 o'clock the con follow-up, because I'm a big fan of the cons that do these. You'd think more of them would, but not all of them do, which is basically a get-together at the end of the day asking, how did we do? Because that's the best way to tweak and improve your con, is to get the direct feedback from people immediately after the con ends. But there's an amazing amount of cons that don't do this. I'm not sure it's because they're rigid and don't want to change things, but again, shout out to Farpoint that they're willing to listen and adapt. And clearly they are, because as Brandon mentioned, the avatar function was fixed this morning.
Yeah, and that's a good point too, because as you said, there are not a lot of cons that do that, and I find it very very cool on your part to kind of provide a vehicle for people basically to criticize is too strong of a word, but to basically tell you what you needed to fix, and sometimes people aren't very keen on hearing what folks didn't like. They obviously they always want to hear what are the cool things that people did enjoy about this show, but out of challenge or out of failures, you're able to make improvements, or I find that is actually can be far more useful versus knowing what you've done right all the time. So the fact that you are providing as I said, a vehicle and a method in which folks can come back to you and basically specify some things that they would like to see done better is good on your part. There are a couple of other shows that I know do it, and the only reason why I'm saying that I find it pretty courageous to do, because I know sometimes they can get pretty heated.
Yes, they can.
and especially with a lot of those larger shows, which is, it's understandable because there's so many moving parts, and with a lot of times if you have so many moving parts, it's trickier to be able to fix every single detail because it's such a large machine. So I haven't had a chance to necessarily go to what you've discussed with Farpoint. Are those, would you say in general, pretty like relaxed, or have there been times where there have been very strong opinions about how things can be done differently?
Well, Farpoint is very laid back, so this is not the place you're going to find people with torches ready to burn down the castle.
I figured as much.
Except, of course, when we get trapped in by snow, but then that's everyone's ready to go Josh, what do you think?
I think as far as having the bigger shows, well, thing is, Farpoint is more than a convention; it's a community. Same with Shorely. You have people that have been loyally going to these cons for decades. And it's like, so the folks who run it like to sit down with some of the people who are regulars and say, hey, what can we do better next year? How could we do this? How could we do that? That sort of thing. I really do think something like maybe a creation con or an awesome con or something. Definitely awesome con, because Chris, you and I both, and a lot of our other friends have had millions of complaints about how they've done things that have basically frustrated the heck out of us over the years.
The Peter Capaldi, Jenna Lewis signing will forever live in infamy in my mind.
Yeah, mine too. That was the main reason. One of the main reasons I had for going to that is I really wanted to see them at the Q&A, and
so
you were what, an hour late?
Oh my God! There were people crying in line because they were waiting so long, and they had to go catch their airplane or their train to go back, and they knew they had to leave because they didn't have a hotel reservation. They're going to have to miss this opportunity. But just as a side note of this, so months later, I ran into Jenna Lewis at Tampa Bay Comic Con, which is an awesome con, people should go check out. And I mentioned to her that, hey, like I missed the opportunity to see you at Awesome Con in Washington, D.C. And she just drops everything and looks at me and says, wow, that was a bleep experience. And I was like, yeah, you'll remember that too.
And I was gonna say, just with that being said, obviously, all shows are not going to be perfect, and I'm picturing, and I do remember, how much of a challenge that particular aspect of the show was. We want to have to be transparent about that, and just based on the size and magnitude, not to give out any excuses, obviously, but based on the size and magnitude, you have far more moving parts, just like I was mentioning with something like that and the logistics of that. So, I'm sure that there was a wire that I crossed somewhere, and, I'm sure it was just, a learning experience and a growing pain of that show. Because, I don't know if you guys, I believe you guys had gone to the very first Awesome Con,
Yeah.
Both of you. So, and I was there at the first Awesome Con, and sometimes just based on just thinking back on where it started and where we are now, it's pretty remarkable to start in a guest coat room, essentially, to start the first year. I think the space that they use now is basically a place where they check cosplay weapons, if I remember correctly. Like what they used from the first year, that's what they use that room for now. And now it takes up both buildings. And I remember they made that change. It was pretty drastic. I want to say the second year it moved upstairs, and it was just upstairs. And then the third year we had it in both buildings. So, when you have that drastic of a change, it is a huge adjustment. In terms of like all the things that you have to stay on top of and make sure runs smoothly. So, again, not making excuses at all, but at the same time, I think it plays into just that idea of more moving parts and the drastic change that you're seeing between, the size difference that was happening from year to year to year.
Absolutely. You do have a change when you scale up from mom and pop to corporate, but at the same time, and this can be a subject for another conversation, it's the mentality of customer service. And, I think a smaller mom and pop con is faster to react to some of the points that, let's say, criticism or counsel that is offered to them by people, whereas I think the larger entity, once it becomes so large, it is less receptive to some of the commentary and feedback.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's just, I understand what you're saying, Brandon, about how they've had to grow and they've tried to adapt. But you would think with the number of shows that they do a year, it is like a circus in a way, because it's like, okay, we do an AwesomeCon in Washington, then we do another one in New York, we do another one in Chicago. You think they get the system down pat at some point. And they're using the same buildings year after. You think they'd have a game plan. Like, okay, this worked really great last year, but this did not so much. So let's try that. And kind of move from there.
For sure.
But I don't think they take notes.
Well,
and, you know, each location offers its own problems. Yeah, but you know, after a while, you think that they could adapt more to it. You know, like I'm sure that the guys who set up the shows for WWE, you know, going from arena to arena, and they go through a whole circuit, so they know each arena. And I think you've had guys working for them for years that know okay where this is and that is, and how we get the Titantron and the ramp and the ring and everything set up to accommodate this particular arena. Well, you'd think AwesomeCon would sort of have a similar idea every year.
Well, like I said, who knows? But nothing, like I said, is a perfectly fine-tuned machine, and I'm sure there were other. There might have been other factors at play, which I would be interested in, definitely, learning more, about. But with that being said, I know we're getting a little off track. Let me
Just a
hop
little bit.
over to the gathering. Let's see.
Just a tiny bit. I mean, clearly, we have some strong feelings about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second. I'm gonna see if we can get this going. All right, so let me pull up the screen. And have you guys already joined, or
No, I haven't
haven't yet?
I haven't. Yeah.
All right, no worries. And you can vicariously live through mine.
Yes.
All right, let me pull this up.
That's fine.
Here we go. Let me. Okay, here we go. All right, so I made a point. I tried to make sure today that I stayed in a place where I knew that there wouldn't be a whole lot of conversation, because that is one of the caveats that I feel might be another thing. And I don't want to give like all these like extensive, notes for those that helped put together this virtual con. But I know sometimes if you just hop right in at a certain place that it's going to be very, very packed with attendees, you may jump right into a conversation that you did not need to be a part of.
Yeah.
As we learned yesterday.
Well, that's kind of how it actually is in real life sometimes.
It is.
Yeah.
But in the same regard, you're not immediately popping up. You're not like teleporting to the hall floor and finding yourself, already in a conversation that's happening where you generate. So there's that. Okay. All right. So let me head downstairs.
I feel like we ought to be playing the Mario music right now.
Yeah, it's so good, yeah.
Right. All right. So I'm curious. I know you guys you were commenting on a couple of the programming that was happening today. Okay, so we again have the Bob Howie show. Get out of here.
Yeah, so that is the other thing I also noticed. I'm glad you brought that up, that once the talk starts, like the default of like the programming like doesn't let you see if something started like 5 minutes ago. It automatically goes to the next panel or the next time.
Right.
Like
So it'd be cool. I was gonna say it'd be cool if it dropped you off as a default in an area that they know is not going to be well habitated, or if they want, I don't know if there's a way to do this. If they have a way of controlling, if there's someone that's controlling where people generate, they generate each person that signs on, like just like if you would do a Zoom. You can specify when people can come in, and by controlling when people can come in, you can designate where they start. So that would be cool. So that way that people aren't like popping up in the same exact area. So so it looks like we have some of the same same vendors, some of the same organizations. And you said one of the primary ones that you were interested in doing, you said most of them don't start until 12.
Right. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I mean, it is Sunday.
That's true. That is very true.
So at one point on the con, I counted 68 people at around 2 o'clock. That would be when your avatar is in the room, you can see what other avatars are there with you. But once you go into the Zoom panel itself, you're not able to see who the other participants are. And that'll be one thing I'll probably suggest at 3 o'clock, that if it's possible, if you can see who else is with you in the Zoom talk, rather than having to do it via your avatar.
Right, right. Absolutely.
Oh, pardon me one moment.
All right, so let me see here. Okay. So I'm actually interested to actually go to one of the, excuse me, to go to one of the vendors. So I know you were mentioning about one of the shows before, and you were talking about, I think one of the shows you had mentioned was Star Quest, right? Chris? Okay. All right, guys. So while we are waiting, well, have some of our team members taking a quick break. They'll be right back momentarily. While they're doing that, if you guys have any questions, let me know where you guys are hailing from and watching our stream. Let us know, what particular programming perhaps that you're interested in. I'd love to know, what programming you're going to participate in today. And yeah, other than that, if you enjoy a lot of these streams that we're doing, as I mentioned before, be sure to like and subscribe, as we will be doing many more in the future. We're going to be doing a lot more live streams of upcoming shows. And of course, as I mentioned before, we're going to be doing some streams of many of the TV shows that are out and about right now. And lastly, be on the lookout as I'm talking about TV shows that you guys are going to tune in earlier, or say not earlier, but later on today for our show on American Gods, which will be happening at 6 o'clock. All right. So Chris, what I was saying was, yes. I know you were mentioning I think we were mentioning Starfleet yesterday, and some of the other shows. Because I'm always, as I said, interested in hopping into checking out new shows, and I know Starfleet was one of them that I was curious about. Is there anything that you can, at least Spark Notes wise, that you can say? Well, it wasn't Starfleet. I'm sorry. I believe it was Star Quest. I apologize.
Oh yeah, Star Quest. Whoa. Well, are you asking about other shows I've heard officially they're launching?
Okay. Okay.
Because like I said, I do like very much Mid-Atlantic Nostalgia Con, which is a show that brings about some of the older stars, and it's also held at the Hunt Valley Inn. They just announced that they are going to make a go of it. Unfortunately, it's going to be overlapping with Awesome Con in August, although they end on Saturday rather than on Sunday. But that'll be a show. They haven't announced any guests. Last year, they were supposed to bring in Richard Chamberlain, who many people might remember from the Throne Boards, from the Three Musketeers. And for any viewers of Leverage out there, he was the mentor for the character Parker. But the only stars I've heard of that are going to definitely have said, yes, we're going to make a go of this this year are Awesome Con and Mid-Atlantic Nostalgia Con in August. And then, of course, C2E2 and Emerald City Comic Con in Chicago and Seattle, respectively, in December. Everyone else, I think they're hopeful, but they haven't definitely said, yes, this is happening.
Gotcha. All right. So,
I saw StarQuest. So maybe StarQuest is going to try and make a go of it, but I just haven't heard anything official yet.
Gotcha.
What is StarQuest? Chris?
So StarQuest is a very small con that started in Frederick, Maryland. About, I guess it's going to be 6 years ago now. Yeah, it used to be held at the Holiday Inn near the shopping mall when you just enter the city. But I think that hotel is sold, so they probably moved the venue. It's really small. It's actually smaller than Farpoint Con, if you can believe that.
Okay. Well, I'm still, like I said, I'm always up to checking out new cons. So I will definitely be sure to look more into that. I found it interesting, and I'm gonna go back to this, just in the same way, because I know we really didn't necessarily go to tables per se yesterday. And going to tables, if someone is not there, you can basically, as you guys can see on the screen here, you can basically message them, and it'll give an indication of when they might be back, or you can just wait for them to return back to reply back to your message. So in essence, it's as if the representatives are not there, and you're still basically leaving some information. Perhaps they, just like they would have at their table, maybe they have a list where you're leaving some of your information to find out further information. That's basically what you have here if they're not physically at their table. So in the same vein. All right, so
Yeah, again, as you're going through there, I'm looking at some of what I thought were vendor tables, and it's just that's the only experience that I thought maybe it would take us directly to our website or something. It's just that would be the part of the whole con that I would think perhaps needs to be a little bit enhanced.
And it is hyperlinked. I don't know if you saw it. There is hyperlinked. So if someone did want to go to the website, they are able to. They do provide a hyperlinked link for their con in that window that pops up. All right. But it has been interesting too, because in that same way, I wonder if, let me see, if there were instances, like saying with what you guys were talking about with the guests, that they essentially just generate right into the panel room versus actually walking around like that. That there could be some fun things that could be done with that. And I'm if a con steals this idea, it's whatever. But in the instance, like a lot of times you'll have a guest that is wants to check out the con themselves. So maybe they're under anonymous, or they're under a different alias, and they're actually checking out the con themselves or walking the floor. Or maybe you have an instance where you're able to, just like you would with a specific package that you do with a guest, maybe there's some way that you can hang out and chat that guest, maybe. Even though I know there are going to be plenty of like logistics and caveats to that, but I think that would add like an extra like flavor to the con that you normally would have if you have a specific guest package.
So it looks like we're at 33 people at the con right now, and we went up from 30, so I'm guessing people are starting to they're starting to wake up from the virtual hangover.
Yeah. And with that being said, I am interested. He is still there. Sorry, man. I don't want to put you on blast, but yeah, it's funny. Mutual friend is still at the bar. Let me see. And then
Wait a minute, Brendan. Aren't we getting close to what is your usual Sunday hangout?
Hey, you know what? Sometimes you need to relax. So yeah, so every once in a while, there've been a couple years. And actually, speaking on that, I actually needed to correct it. I realized that I talked about it yesterday. My first year, it was not. I looked back on it. It was not 2017. It was 2018 because I was looking back for a non-visitor. She was the first person that I interviewed my first year at Farpoint. And I believe that was the year that she came back because I guess she's been at this con more than once. I remember you mentioning it when you were talking about your first year, and she apparently was there that year. So the first year that I went, she was there as well.
So in the spirit of that, I know when I was speaking to Josh, I said that I thought John and Bernita had been there 3 or 4 years ago. Oh no, I went back and looked. They were there in 2013. The cons and the years just begin to blend together, I suppose.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, they for sure start melding together. The only way that I'm able to differentiate, I'll be honest, for those of you that keep track, those of you watching out there that keep track of the events that I go to, you guys know out there that I go to San Diego every year. And in going to San Diego every year, the only way that I've been able to kind of not allow mentally those years to kind of meld together is remembering, just as you have landmarks from not getting lost, is just remembering certain panels and remembering what happened, certain things that happened in a year. Thankfully, there have been big enough things that have happened every single year where I can still, up to this point, remember what year a particular thing happened. But I'm sure as time goes along, I will start to meld them together at some point. It will start to blur. All right. So I don't want to keep wandering around.
I use my my Flickr page, shameless self-promotion, DC Vol 1994, to keep track of all the cons I go to.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah. Let me see, multi-message astronomy. Oh, that's interesting. Multi-message astronomy. And okay, it says no pandemic is in here now. That's interesting one. So let me check this out. Okay. Do you guys know about and I probably should pull up the schedule as well, about the what's going on with the no pandemic panel? That sounds interesting.
Oh, I think it was, the panel I think I saw called This Is Not the Dystopia I Was Looking For, Writing in a Post-Pandemic World. I think that.
Gotcha. Oh, this one's ordered post-pandemic?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Curious. And what was that about necessarily? Because I might hop into that for a couple of minutes.
It's a kind of a writing workshop.
Okay.
For people to aspiring writers or even writers who've already been published, to give them some ideas about how to write about life in the time of COVID, I guess.
But that's actually the noon panel. The no pandemic is something about, you can talk the no pandemic, no politics hour, which is 11 to 12, which is I think what we're seeing right now. I think it's about, you can talk about anything except politics in this venue.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
But Josh is right that the one for the writer workshop, that's the one that kicks off at noon in the author's track room.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, so guys,
everything about 11 is currently right now it's the everything you knew about fairy tales is wrong. The no pandemic, no politics hour, discovered during lockdown, and storytelling with new technology.
gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, I tell you what. I'm gonna hop out of this just for a little bit because you said the next one doesn't start. We have a couple of minutes before the next panel starts, but let me share this. All right. So just in thinking of, I know you were talking about yesterday that there's an opportunity to kind of do a hybrid of what we're seeing with this show. What are your thoughts on that? For maybe you have some specific ideas of what that might look like, or say either of you what that might look like, and if so, how do you think if they might be able to cohesively mix both elements together? Because I think that it would actually be a great idea, and it could actually be something not just with Farpoint, but with a lot of cons. There's an opportunity there. So,
Well, go ahead, Justin.
Well, I mean, just as a thought, I think that going forward, both Shore Leave and Farpoint, doing something like that, it would be a big boon for people that have disabilities that makes it hard for them to get around to go to conventions, that they can still come and enjoy the panels and maybe see the actors and I think, like, especially I think if you have somebody who's sitting in on the panels, providing tech support and like, okay, Ralph from Wisconsin wants to know, asking questions on behalf of online people, I think is one thing. Although I don't know. I mean, I think some people who do the online thing, I think they feel like they have a certain amount of anonymity and can say whatever they want. That could be a bit chaotic, but maybe I'm wrong about that. But I think helping people who just physically can't make it to a con for some reason, this does help them out.
for
Chris?
sure.
So what I would do is I would bring in a guest or two, not to the actual physical location, but pipe them in. I remember a con that no longer exists, Regeneration, who did this with Tom Baker about maybe 4 years ago. And so I would also install a charge to watch this. I mean, I would have the people at the con, you pay a regular fee to go to the con and hang out, and then I would do 1 or 2 guests that are not at the con, that people at the hotel themselves would go into a room and see it on a big video screen. And for those people who are not, I mean, I would charge them maybe like $5 to watch the talk and be able to interact. Those would be my first steps towards making this a hybrid model, because, again, I do believe that we should pay something because there is a cost associated with putting a con together. So I'm very comfortable with this being behind some sort of paywall.
I was going to say at some point it would be interesting if we, and what I'm immediately thinking of is for those of you that watch Big Bang Theory, the robot of being able to have like a robot avatar that's kind of riding around and is basically acting as you're experiencing this con. So maybe if you're not physically able to attend, I know that would be super pricey, and I can't imagine if you have so many people that are using this Android, so to speak, to like Android to get around and to take in the con, what that would look like, because it's cons, as you guys have been alluding to, and those of you that are watching out there, you guys know this full well. Cons are already chaotic as it is, a good chaotic, mind you, but still can be chaotic. So to add another facet of that by having like Android vehicles that are riding around on top of people trying to walk around, I feel would be a lot. But there's still something to be said about that. As you were saying, Josh, if it's someone who has, some physical limitations and it really is tricky for them to really make the trip or the trek out to a particular show, and it will still provide them the opportunity to do that. And there's also something to be said too, if you have people that are international, to still be able to go to the show, because maybe it's maybe more cost effective to be able to do that, to do it through that avenue versus doing everything all the things that are involved in going to a show internationally. Because case of points, speaking back to some other shows that that I regularly attend, there's some friends that are international. They are in Australia, they're in the UK, they're in all parts of the world, and it's exhausting. I can't imagine physically doing it because it's exhausting. Just knowing what they have to, when they tell me their whole travel story of getting from point A to point B. I can't imagine doing it just in listening to it, all the stuff that they have to go through in order to make it to a con. All the security, related protocols and all the, different logistics of, like, say if you bought something and trying to get it from point A to point B, because a lot of them like to collect things. They're major collectors. So it sounds like such a headache. I know that they enjoy it because obviously they have a passion for attending cons, but still, like, it's quite astonishing. Many of the things you wouldn't believe, many of the things that they have to go through, the ropes that they have to jump over in order to leave their home and to get to a con in a given year. It's pretty insane. So
I just want to add a couple of thoughts I just had about what you were saying about the logistics of it. Two of the things that I think they could try to do is, how like they have the table set up for the vendors. You could let the vendors make online sales there at the table. If somebody avatar comes up and sees, and clicks on that table and sees all these cool T-shirts or models or whatever they have, and they make, they purchase them online. That would certainly help them both out. But the other thing I was going to mention is if people could, make their avatars cosplay. But be a Klingon, be a Vulcan, be a Stormtrooper, whatever. I'm not sure what the copyright and trademark logistics are with those. But still, I think that's something I'm sure a lot of fans would like to do. I mean, if they were going to attend the cons virtually, I'm sure a lot of them would like to come as a particular character.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I was gonna say I definitely agree with you, Josh. And just also, I will give credit where credit is due. Is outside of what I was talking about of being able to choose your avatar, it was cool to see that there was such a wide spectrum of the avatars that you could pick, in terms of being, inclusive. If I was seeing it correctly, you did have avatars that were using wheelchairs, and you had all types of different avatars for people to be able to select. So to speak to that, it was cool to see that there was that diversity angle there, that people were able to choose the avatar that they felt that fits most for them.
Yeah.
I don't know what your thoughts on it, Chris.
Well, I was just going back to my thoughts of how people could make a profit, or at least have a revenue stream by going with the virtual con. And the other thing I've seen with places like GalaxyCon is that if you pipe someone in on the side, you could also say, okay, we know we can't do the photo ops, but we can do 1 minute video chats. You pay X amount of money, and then you do a 1 minute video chat with the guest who is there. And once more, it might be cost prohibitive to, let's say, fly a Pedro Pascal, lodge him, food and beverage and everything. But if you were to offer him the same amount or close to that for like, hey, would you do like a 1 hour from your Los Angeles home? He might be open to that. I mean, again, when Regeneration, who had the right idea, they just couldn't follow through on the con for other reasons. When they piped in Tom Baker, I mean, they filled up the room at the Hunt Valley. It was a massive crowd. So I think there is an inbuilt audience, let's say, for the people you mentioned in Australia, that, it's too much for them to like pack up, hop in a plane, the expense and everything to like, let's say, come to Hunt Valley to listen to Tom Baker. But if you're offering it virtually, once they measure the price that it would cost them to get there, they might do it. I just think there is a built-in audience for people that maybe necessarily wouldn't come to your con, but if you can pipe them in, it's a variant on Kevin Costner's "If you build it, they will come." If you have them virtually, they will virtually come.
I want to back up what Chris just said. A year, or I think it was almost a year before he passed away, Leonard Nimoy had started doing online appearances at cons. And he did one, I believe it was Farpoint. He did it on Sunday, and the room was filled up. They put it on the big screen, and a lot of people came, even though, a lot of people knew they weren't going to get to ask him questions, and they knew he was, but a lot of them knew this might be my last chance to actually see him and hear his voice. So I think that was a big thing. And I do think, yeah, I mean, if people have an opportunity to talk online with Pedro Pascal, if they can, set it up so he's on the big screen in the ballroom, and they can rig up the microphone so he could see them and they can ask him a question, I think people will go for it. I think that's doable. I still enjoy the actually meeting people and getting to interact with them, like I traditionally do at a con. But if we can't get a Pedro Pascal or a Mark Hamill to physically be at either one of those shows, okay, getting to talk to them online is pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure.
I think a little bit in the second half of 21, definitely in 22, I think the new normal will be some type of like physical and online presence. It's going to be a hybrid moving forward.
Yeah.
Definitely. So with that being said, I know we were saying that there was one particular there was one particular programming that was happening at 12. Did you guys want to hop into that? If not, just let me know. If you guys have any questions out there, for those of you who are watching, be sure to drop your comment. Again, like I said, if there's anything that you are particularly excited about, that you're looking forward to today, just drop a comment and let us know. But other than that, I will leave it to you, gentlemen. This is leave it up to you guys where we head.
Chris, what do you think about the Bob and Howie show?
I have no preference.
Okay.
All
So
right.
Bob and Howie show it is. So let me head there now. Let me share the screen with you guys. All right. Okay.
You think they're still serving breakfast at the Cinnamon Tree restaurant?
Looks like, yeah. Oh, here's a thought. What if, just like you would have in an RPG, they can make it fun and you can actually earn, like, I don't know. Wow, and I'm giving you guys so many ideas out there, Farpoint. But what if they actually give points for certain things that you earn? So what if they do like a kind of like a hunt that you can do for certain items that are here, and maybe that earns you certain things that you can have as swag from the con? Like, they can try to make this fun and really make the most of using the platform. So maybe maybe you get like a T-shirt or something, or they do like a something where you earn like a T-shirt or a cup that can be mailed to you.
Yeah, like the Mario game. Like, you go to a certain place and you get a ding, a big gold coin or something, and the
Yeah,
points add up, and yeah, they give them a T-shirt or a mug or something.
for sure.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
All right. Okay. All right. So we are in here. All right. So let me unshare this. Go ahead. I'll leave it to you guys. If there was anything else that you guys want to discuss, give me 1 second, and I will pull up the Zoom screen for you guys. I'm gonna unshare it just for a moment,
Okay.
and I will head off just for a moment too. So I will leave it to you guys. Go ahead.
All right.
I will just say that I think WandaVision is incredible.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, this past week's episode was like, wow.
And I was gonna say no spoilers, guys.
Okay. All right. No
Yeah.
spoilers.
I guess we won't talk about that moment when Apocalypse came in and just kidding.
Well, I never expected an Apocalypse versus Darkseid fight, but there you go. That's what we had.
Yeah.
Water balloons, which I thought was very creative.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah. Must have been one of those intercompany crossover deals. Yeah.
Yeah, just in the very finest of fine print.
This is not a spoiler, anybody, but while I got your attention and while we're talking about it, Chris, did you hear about this thing that there's a rumor Wonder Man might get introduced?
I mean that's the beauty of WandaVision, that there are so many red herrings and so many rumors that it's like a ping pong match. I'm having trouble keeping track of all of them.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say this. Wonder Man is a character that I don't really care about. I mean, I prefer him as kind of a villain, a member of the Masters of Evil type of thing. But I've never really liked the character that much. I mean, it was kind of interesting when he, was part of that Vision and Wanda dynamic because, a lot of people don't realize this, but in the earlier comic books, Vision and Wonder Man shared a lot of memories together.
Yeah.
That there was part of his consciousness in there, and I don't know how that would fit in a post WandaVision thing. I'm far more interested in the idea of what Brandon and I were talking about earlier about, say, Blue Marvel showing up. And right now, I think. What do you think? I mean, not on WandaVision, but just being in a movie directed by Spike Lee.
Well, I'm going to go back to WandaVision for a second and just say that I still think that there's a lot of question marks that we should not lose sight of, that I think is going to mean something. Like, I still think that the engineer will turn out to be someone. I think that the person who was in witness protection will turn out to be someone. I think that the oft-mentioned husband of the neighbor Agnes will turn out to be someone. We still have 2 episodes to go, but there's still a lot we don't know, and there's still a lot of characters that have been mentioned that I don't think we should assume is just like a throwaway. I think they actually will end up meaning something.
Yeah, I think so too. It all kind of fits together, like everything in Marvel. It is a big tapestry where one thing leads into another, and it just makes you keep coming back to the movies.
For sure. Are you guys able to hear this? Because if so, then I will extend it.
I cannot hear them. I know Howie is talking, but I cannot hear what he's saying.
Okay, 1 sec. Continue.
So, there is, of course, the big rumor that Paul Bentley and Elizabeth Olsen dropped. that there is a big celebrity coming in the final episode. And some people think it's either going to be Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange. There's some people, maybe this is hopeful that it's Michael Fassbender as Magneto. They are really trying to keep it as under wraps as possible. Kind of the whole Mark Hamill Mandalorian thing. Who do you think it's going to be?
Difficult to say. I do like the approach of the whole like Mark Hamill that they used in The Mandalorian. Sorry, spoilers for anyone who hasn't watched The Mandalorian yet. So I think it's a successful model. Given the fact that everyone knows that Elizabeth Olsen is in London right now filming Universe of Madness, or Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the house money would have to be on Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah, which I don't think would be a huge shock to people, but I think, I mean, for me, I love Doctor Strange. I love Cumberbatch. It would be awesome.
Should have been debuting this weekend, but my last editor delivered his story about 3 weeks ago, which made it a little difficult to have a book. But we're going to have galley soon, and we just put a pre-order page up for the ebook edition at Amazon. So the official publication date, at least of the ebook, will be March 16th, and the print copies, hardcover, softcover, will be available a few weeks after that. But 27 stories, a lot of really good people in it, a lot of good illustrators as well. So it's going to be really good. All right. The same day, as it turns out, the International Association of Media Tie-in Writers will be also releasing an anthology called Turning the Tide. We decided we'd have some fun, and we all picked public domain characters and wrote media tie-in stories about them. So you've got everything from Sinbad the Sailor to a cat from the Cthulhu stories to Ozma of Oz and that sort of stuff. My story features an obscure character named Dr. Nicola, who was apparently the first supervillain on a par with Moriarty, but the first to have a cat, which was inspirational to Blofeld. So it was fun. I did some research to try and find the character that the others weren't already doing, because we already had 2 Dracula stories, so I was trying to avoid that. And was reading up on Dr. Nicola, which was apparently a wildly popular character in his 5 novels from Guy Boothby in the late 1800s. And I read the last one of them because the status quo was changing, and it was like, this is not particularly well written. But apparently he wrote so fast. He didn't stop to think about, rewriting or being consistent book to book, because, that wasn't important back then. So I've got a story in that anthology. So I'll have 2 anthologies out in March, and then later in March, a 3rd anthology, but this one of essays. Jim Beard is doing the 2nd volume of his essays about the 1966.
Actually, guys, let me share this full screen. I realize that.
So this one's all about the episodes in season 2. And I happen to do the last Julie Newmar Catwoman 2-parter. So I wrote that. So I'll have 3 things out in March, which is kind of fun. And right now I'm also drafting a synopsis for a project I'm collaborating with somebody on that's not announced yet, but it's interesting because I was brought in based on my work on Children of Earth, which was the book I wrote after the author Paul Anthony Jones passed away. So I wrote that over the summer, and it came out in October. And then the publisher came to me and said, "I got somebody else who needs someone like you to come in and help him finish a story." Like, does it pay? He said, "Yes." I said, "Is it any good?" They said, "Talk to the guy." So I did a sample chapter based on his notes, and now I'm doing a detailed chapter by chapter breakdown to make sure we're all in sync. And I'll probably have more to talk about in the next few months about this one. Plus, I'm teaching.
You're teaching. That's your job. How is that going?
Since September, it's been hybrid. it's still, I've got half the kids online, half the kids in the classroom on a daily basis. And, well, except Wednesdays, which is asynchronous. So we all get to stay home. So the problem is the kids who are online full time, I don't know anywhere near as well as the kids I see even just 2 days a week. The ones that see 4 days a week, I know best.
And I was gonna say, with that being said, as he's talking about all this, shout out to the teachers that are out there that are still teaching after all of this, with making the adjustment of not just teaching. Teaching in a physical environment and having to make sure that they are making sure that their class is safe and that there's students are safe under all the protocols, but also adjusting to like the logistics.
So
also adjusting to the logistics of going virtual.
It's been weird.
Yeah.
Because half the time I'm standing in front of the camera, and the other half of the time I'm running around the classroom so that the kids in class can answer a question that the kids at home can hear, because I've got a headset. So I have to hand them the headset so they can speak into the mic.
Which is what he's talking about now.
It's I'm like a game show host. So I do what I can. And the rest of the time I'm doing this stuff, plus my HOA work, plus, trying to spend time with Deb collapsed on the couch.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say also shout out to Rob too. I know he's talking about Bob here, but yeah, shout out to Rob, cool dude. I don't know if any of you have had opportunity to meet with them or to pick his brain about what his thoughts are on a whole bunch of pop culture related things. He's super knowledgeable, cool dude.
It's been better than not having training help at all. But I do find, I do find that even though I'm probably staying home only a little more than I used to stay home anyway, choking on rum.
Just don't choke. Don't die on camera. That's really embarrassing.
I've sort of had pandemic brain in that there's less on TV now. So I'm finding
there isn't.
I'm catching up on movies that I've been meaning to watch, including old movies that I've been wanting to rewatch, and rereading books that I read years ago.
I was gonna say, speaking up on catching up on movies, guys. I know this might not be your foray, but and most of you that are friends with me on social media, you know that I'm big into it. I'm super excited about Mortal Kombat. I'm so excited that that's coming back. I'm super looking forward to that, seeing that film, and I'm glad that as much as it is, an adjustment to have that dual release of being in theaters and also being on cable, I am excited about that film, and I cannot wait till it hits. So.
And it came up in a conversation
Sub-Zero
recently, and I thought, okay, this is the time for me to reread.
I didn't catch it. What'd you say?
Sub-Zero. Factors is a couple of years after I graduated from college, I wrote to Walter Miller, the author of Canticle for Leibowitz. Now, he has a weird kind of history. He began writing after World War II, and he sold about 40 or 50 short stories to the science fiction magazines at the time in a period of just a few years. And then he wrote A Canticle for Leibowitz as 3 separate novellas, which were then adapted into what became the novel. And he never wrote another novel. He also wrote for television in the 50s.
I have read this.
He never wrote another book. And it became one of the mysteries of science fiction, how somebody could write a Hugo Award-winning book. He's actually a 2-time Hugo winner for this, and I don't know what else, maybe a short story. And what happened? Well, it turns out that he had depression, very serious depression, possibly launched by his experience as a bomber crew member in World War II. And he did eventually commit suicide in the 1990s. But I had written to him in 1976 at the beginning, first time, because I wanted to know if anybody had ever, I was so impressed with this, I wanted to know if anybody had ever approached him about converting or adapting A Canticle for Leibowitz into a movie or a TV miniseries. And I wrote to him in care of the publisher, which I think was Bantam Books. And he wrote back right away, and he told me, well, something might be in the works, but that's been happening over and over ever since the book was published in the late 50s. So he said, check with me in a few months. So I wrote back to him in a couple of times in early 77. And at one point, he wrote me back this long, detailed 2-page letter analyzing everything he thought would need to be done, because he had originally also been a scriptwriter, what would need to be done in order to adapt a book that's of 3 standalone parts into a cohesive movie or a TV miniseries. And I hadn't read his letters. I saved them, of course, but I hadn't read them in probably 40 years. And then I pulled them out and I read them, and I thought, you know what, don't read them again until you finish rereading the novel. So I finished rereading the novel the other day, and then I pulled the letters out, and he was dead on target in his own analysis of his own novel as to its strengths and weaknesses as an adaptation to something that would be on screen. And then his final letter was, well, still something might be happening, so he probably shouldn't talk to me about it anymore. And I didn't continue the correspondence. But I'm really glad I saved those letters, because it's like the voice from the dead, literally in this case. And finding that his own analysis was so on target and so sharp. And he and I basically agreed. And I'm still sorry that it's never been adapted. Now that we have Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime and various other streaming platforms, that would be ideal, an ideal avenue for adapting A Canticle for Leibowitz, because it is a standalone story. It would not be a multi-season thing. But so that was kind of an interesting little detour for me. Another detour was All the President's Men. With the recent impeachment situation, it got me. It kind of inspired me to get this out of the library and rewatch the movie. And this was I think the 30th anniversary edition. It was the movie came out in '76, so this had a lot of extra material on it, features, including Robert Redford talking about the book and the movie, and Bernstein and Woodward. And part of what also made me get it at the library was when Hal Holbrook died a couple of weeks ago. And he, of course, played Deep Throat in the movie, and he narrated the extra features.
Yeah, shout out to him.
So
who
that
passed away recently, because
thinking,
he's been in quite a few projects that I hold dear and that I enjoy quite a bit. I'm gonna go really obscure. A film that I remember him in was if any of you guys have seen the first Creep Show. I love that film. For any of you that don't that know me out there, I love horror films, but yeah, like that particular one, that anthology horror film is pretty awesome. So he is actually a part of one of the stories in that anthology horror film.
And he resigned. It's the only impeachment process.
I had just rewatched John Carpenter's thing.
Favorite film of all time.
Nixon would probably not have been forced to leave office.
You said Holbrook was in the thing?
The last time.
No, I meant the fall.
Everything worked the way it was supposed to work.
Yeah.
We had a criminal president.
I misspoke.
Multiple criminal acts and cover-ups. And we had, yes, Larry Hogan's father was one of the congressmen on the Judiciary Committee. Larry Hogan is our governor here in Maryland. And so Nixon committed criminal acts. Dogged young reporters whom nobody knew dug into the story, found the tiniest little thread, and kept pulling at the thread until they unraveled the rest of the story. And then the Senate Select Watergate Committee investigated Watergate and the alleged crimes that the president and his men had committed. And then the special prosecutor was appointed. And then Nixon fired the special prosecutor when the prosecutor went after the tapes. A lot of us may not remember that the Senate committee hearings in the summer of 1973 is when the secret taping system that Nixon had in the Oval Office was revealed. And once that was revealed, then the effort was get those tapes. Nixon did whatever he could, including obstructing justice, to keep the tapes from coming out. But eventually the tapes were ordered to be released by the courts. So you had a criminal president, you had reporters doing their job, you had a bipartisan Senate committee doing its job, and eventually Republicans had to agree that what Nixon had done was improper. Then you had a special prosecutor who was allowed to do his job. When Nixon fired him, Republicans in the Justice Department quit.
Saturday Night Massacre, as it was known.
Right. And then a second special prosecutor was appointed. That all led to, in 1974, the House Judiciary Committee meeting to craft articles of impeachment.
All right, so I'm gonna head out of this, guys, so that way we're not here for the whole entire panel. It looks like it's recording, so for those of you that are that are interested in checking it out further, I know that this panel will likely be posted. But just so you guys are aware, I will hop out of this now and just let you guys know where you can check it out if you guys are live streaming it now. All right. So yeah, it's in terms of the panels on tap, there are some interesting ones that are for sure, still occurring and happening now. I know you guys were teasing some of the other ones that are, I guess, happening in the 1 o'clock hour, and there's one that you guys wanted to check out in the 3 o'clock hour. But I think we're pretty much good on, giving a feel of the con itself. Just closing remarks with day 2. What are your thoughts and overall, what do you feel are the things that have been great wins, and what are things that you still, if you were to nitpick, what would be some things that you still feel would could be tweaked for either of you?
Well, I think going forward, like we said, this could be a good model for a hybrid in-person and web-based convention series. I think that if they want to do something like this, they're going to have to set up a lot of video cameras, a lot of connections to the internet, because there's several panels going on at the same time that people might want to go to. One other thought I just now had, the second, was, okay, Chris and Brandon, the three of us, I'm sure there's been more than once where we've been like, oh my gosh, I really want to go to this panel, but there's this panel or that panel at the same time. Would it be nice if, like, okay, you had like a Farpoint channel where you could, like on YouTube, okay, I couldn't make it to this panel, but I really wanted to hear what they had to say. So, you just go to YouTube or something and watch it afterwards and see what was said.
Definitely, for sure. Chris?
Yeah, that's a really good idea. So what I liked about this was, I think more of the panels that didn't have a moderator, I think somehow just the flow worked better. And I think that one small, not all the questions that were put into the Q&A were not always seen. It seemed like the back and forth was happening in the chat function, and that's where people were putting their questions in. So it was a little bit distracting, I think, for the people who are presenting to have to keep track of the chat and of the Q&A at the same time. So I think you need to do away with one of them, either like have one or the other, but not both, because it was confusing, I think, for the people who are presenting. as I mentioned before, I would like to know who's in the Zoom chat with me. In order to see who was in the room, I had to step back out, look at my avatar, and see what other avatars were around me in that same room. So it just, maybe because I'm just so used to Zoom chats, knowing who's in the room with me, I would sort of like that function for the 2.0. And then a very silly thing is I found myself sometimes trying to move my avatar instead of with the arrows. I have a trackball mouse, and I was trying to move it with my trackball, and it's like, wait a minute, why is it not working? It's like, no, of course I have to use the arrow keys. But overall, I mean, I think exceeded my expectations for this first time out of the box.
Yeah, definitely. And I was going to say, just to add to what you were saying, Chris, you know, I think that's actually a great idea. I understand probably why they have it set up that way, you know, just for privacy reasons, which is understandable. But maybe there's a feature on there that, like, say if you buy your virtual ticket, that you can do a solo one or you can do a dual one, and basically based on what payment you do, you can have an additional feature where you, whoever you're partnered with or whoever you come together with as a group, they have a capability within a panel room to communicate with each other. I don't know, that may be like too like nuanced or too much work, but you know, if you maybe give an extra surcharge in that regard, maybe they have an extra feature where they are able to communicate amongst each other versus everyone in the group, maybe giving them a meeting room or something within the panel, perhaps. But yeah, I was gonna say, overall, like, you know, as I said, the Gather platform is what they decided to use is pretty cool. It gives me a whole bunch of, as I said, ideas for, you know, what can be done, not just with this con, but with many others that decide to go virtual in the coming year, if it comes to that. And then if it doesn't, obviously, I feel that there's still an opportunity to, you know, take advantage of it in, you know, unique circumstances for people that are still trying to attend the show. But with that being said, as I said, thank you guys. I want to thank my two folks down here that were here to, you know, co-host and share their thoughts on Farpoint for day 2. Before I let you guys go, can you guys tell folks where they can find each of you?
I'm on Facebook at Josh Pritchett Jr. And also you can read some of my fictional work in the Brave New Girls anthology series. We are up to 5 volumes now, with hopefully a 6th one coming out sometime in 2022.
Awesome. And of course, you can find his reviews on Movers and Shakers Unlimited also.
Yep.
Help him there. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I invite you to come look at my Instagram at Verde Rider. One new cosplay every day, and who knows, you might even find yourself featured one day in one of the cosplays. And also come to my Flickr. It's DC Vol 1994, where you'll be able to see photos of cons past. And currently, I am showing 1 issue a day of my extended comic book collection. And I invite you to come check out the Instagram and the Flickr.
All right, well, there you guys have it. Thanks again so much for those of you that are watching out there. If you enjoyed this video, many of our live streams, be sure to like and subscribe as always. But still, with that being said, you can also find us on Twitter at Move and Shake UNLTD, on Instagram at Movers Shakers Unlimited, and of course, you can find me, Brandon Choi ENT, on Twitter, and Brandon Choi _ENT on Instagram. Thanks again so much for watching. Be safe out there. Make sure that you join us a little later today, as we will have Emily or M joining us to talk about American Gods, to talk about last week's episode, but to also give a tease of what to expect or some theories of what she has for the episode airing today. All right, other than that, be safe out there once again, and I will see you soon. Bye.
Live long and prosper, everybody.